What's going on, everybody? John Anderson here, making it happen. My fellow photographers and videographers, you probably clicked on this video because you were wondering how to get more zoom from your zoom lens, or you're just stalking me. Anyways, if you don't have a fancy zoom lens, or you're limited by the focal range of your lens, whether it's a 15mm, a 35mm, 50mm, 70mm, 100mm, maybe you have a 70-200 and it's just not enough, or if you have a 500mm and that's just not enough for you, and you're wondering how to get more zoom when you're out shooting, and instead of having to run up closer to the subject, maybe it's a bird in a tree and you need to get a little bit closer, instead of running up and possibly freaking out the animal and having it fly away and missing that shot. Or maybe you're out doing landscape photography and you need to run a whole mile forward just to get that composition that you're wanting with your photo. Or maybe you're doing portrait photography and your 50mm just isn't quite getting you the range you need, so you're spending a lot of time moving forward and backward to get the composition that you want. Whatever lens you're using, I hope these tips and tricks on your camera can help you to be able to get a little bit more range boost out of whatever lens it is that you have. Now I've got tips both for photographers and videographers. First, for you photographers, you can use that 1.6 crop. So for your 15-35mm lens, shooting photos, maybe you can use that 1.6 crop and you essentially have a 24-56mm lens, because that's bumping up your focal length by 1.6. So for your 50mm, you're essentially getting about an 80mm lens, and at 100mm, you are going to be getting a 160mm. And with a 70-200 lens, you will get out even further at 112-320mm. So you thought you bought a 70-200mm lens, but with that 1.6 crop, you have a 112-320. You now have that range out to 320mm with that crop. So you can see just how this will allow you to get a closer shot, but do remember that it is a crop, so you may be losing a little bit of quality. So just make sure that you switch your image resolution or image quality up to the highest setting, so you have more details, and then you can crop in on your image without losing too much of the details. For videographers, which is my main use of my camera, making these videos for you, and as a creative videographer myself, this is how you can get more zoom from your zoom lens. Now I'm shooting on the Canon EOS R, and it will shoot in 1080p, and that's going to give me the full focal range, the widest it will go. But if I switch it to 4K, it's going to crop in for me a little bit. If your camera already shoots in 4K, it may not crop in. Or you can set the image stabilization up a little bit more, and that might crop it in on your camera too. I like to set mine right on the first setting, but if you need a little bit more stabilization, you can bump that up a little bit more. And for my camera, it punches it in a little bit more. You'll notice this on a lot of action cameras too. That stabilization that you add is going to crop it in more and punch it in more. So you're going to lose a lot more on the edges, but this will allow you to be able to get closer in your shot. Now I don't know how much about it crops in on a 200mm with adding that stabilization in to the full crop, because I don't know as much about the numbers as I know about what it gets me as results wise. I just know that it crops in more than 200mm and gets you about from here to here. So 4K, punch in your stabilization on your camera and you'll get something like this. So here's just a comparison as well. This is just full frame in 1080, no stabilization. This is the widest you're gonna get at 200mm. And you'll see how much more zoom I get when I put over here in 4K and switch that stabilization to the highest setting. This is really handy if you're trying to get a farther reach with the lens that you already own without going out and buying another lens that will get you further. But just say you don't have a 300 or 400mm lens for wildlife, you could use your 70-200, punch it in, get close to that 300mm range and be able to capture that little furry guy. And I mean, just look at him. So this is handy if you're trying to get a further reach than what the lens you have currently does. So if you're wanting to zoom in more than what your lens can do, hopefully these are some tricks and tips that you can use to get that extra zoom out of your lens. Doesn't matter what lens it is, these settings are in the camera, so you can just adjust it in your camera and get that extra zoom. If you found this video helpful in any way, please give me that external validation to fuel my internet clout by liking. Comment below if this is something you're gonna try on your camera and your lens to be able to get more range. And check out this video next where I talk about these control rings on the Canon RF lenses, what they're for. See you there.